Hi guys, it's Professor Fernandez. You currently are probably wondering, where am I? This doesn't look like my office. It doesn't look like the nicely lit thing that I have it behind me. I'm actually in a hotel room, um, and I'm very chill. So, I want to talk about Los Vendidos here for a second. Um, it's a play. It's called an acto, but it's a play that is written by Luis Valdez, part of Teatro Campesino. We've gotten pretty much everything I was going to say in the lesson, in the Adobe Spark lesson. So there's not much to say, and there's not very many things to add to that. So usually when I do these videos, I go through the pages almost painstakingly. It's an hour or more, or about an hour runtime. This is not going to be an hour. Doubt it's going to be 10 minutes, frankly, because the lesson actually does a really good job taking you through the entire analysis of this piece. I do want to point out a couple of things, right? So when you're going through the lesson, I want you to notice that it goes through using the rhetorical situation. And this is what you should be using for your pieces that you're going to analyze and then research. So you're probably thinking, oh, I need to research things. No, you need to analyze things. This works a little bit differently than, say, like a history class or any other class, where you actually start with a question and you start researching almost immediately. This is, of course, about learning to look at the rhetorical situation or learning to analyze a piece first, getting your own theories and your own working knowledge of it, and then going into the databases to kind of bolster your theory or completely dismiss your theory, right? So that is pretty much the bulk of it. Should be, not the bulk, but a big chunk of your work should be the rhetorical analysis and analyzing the pieces. And so why I like this lesson is that I think it does a really good job, says the person who created it, a really good job at looking at something like these actos or like this piece and just say, all right, we could look at it as a literary piece, or we could look at it as a rhetorical analysis piece or a rhetorical situation piece. There's nothing wrong with a literary analysis. However, nothing wrong with that. However, it doesn't really get to the heart of what this class is, which is about looking at social justice issues, and looking at how literature encompasses, uses, helps out, insert verb here, social justice issues. So this is a really good example of, I think every example in class that we've talked about is a really fantastic example of like how social justice issues and literature kind of mix. But this one's a really good one. And I think what makes it really good is if you look at the context of this, and if you look at just kind of what was swirling around at the time, right? You can see how literature and social justice meld into one. So what I mean by that is when you're looking at this particular piece, the context is the Delano grape strikes. It is the United Farm Workers of America, and it is the Chicano movement that is headed by Cesar Chavez. We're talking about mid to late 60s. Cesar Chavez and Dr. King are acquaintances. If I believe very strongly, if they had met, they would be friends. They both believe in nonviolence movements to create change. They both believed, they both admired each other. As you probably remember, I put a link in the class of Dr. King sending 2 telegrams. And it's weird because I don't think you guys know what telegrams are, but like it's an email, but like real. two telegrams to Mr. Chavez when he was doing a hunger strike. Um, they they marched, they struck, or they striked. They planned strikes and implemented strikes. So they were one. Their work was one. One was for the betterment of the African American Black community in the United States, and the other one was for the Mexican American Chicano people of the United States. But just like Harvey Milk's work built on Dr. King's work, it also built on Cesar Chavez's work as well. So, so you have this happening during the Chicano movement, and specifically the Delano Grape strikes. And the Delano Grape strikes were started by the United Farm Workers of America, which was a labor union in California that united all of the Mexican American or Chicano laborers who pretty much picked all the fruit and vegetables, or most of the fruit and vegetables in California. And so they were able to unionize, and by working together, just like Dr. King worked together with his compatriots, they were able to make change. And so one of the things that makes this really special is how actos came about. So actos are actually little plays. What you see here, and what I've made a copy of, is actually the written form of this one play. Actos are really one act plays. There's not really like a second act. It's not really super long. They're not super long because you had to be able to do this in front of an audience on their break time. So these actos actually started out in the fields in California. So during break time, people would they would drive a truck. The truck bed would be the stage, where they would make a makeshift stage. They would do this play really quickly. People would be entertained, spirits would be lifted, the break would be over, and they would continue on with the day's work. So that's what's so great about this. So it started out very simple, and it grew into something that was a fundraising arm for the United Farm Workers of America, for the Chicano movement, and it became the political voice, the satire voice, the actual voice of demonstration, of social justice activism for that particular movement as well. So you have something that was very basic, something you can do in about 10 minutes, to now it is a stage play with props. If you see the actual play and then read the play, there's some differences, right? Because every time they did the play, it was a little bit different. This is like the written form, right? So it changes. And what's also really cool is that every acto, every play, every little one act play here was talking about something that could be related, that relates to the farm workers of that time. So it was always something about the boss, how they feel about the boss, how the boss treated them. It was about, in this case, the identity of Mexican Americanism at that moment, what it meant to be Mexican American, what was acceptable, what wasn't, what is the ideal Mexican American. It was Ronald Reagan, then governor, future president Ronald Reagan, and his policies against unionization. So even from the beginning, actos were always political, always about social issues, always about social justice, and it just grew from there. So this in of itself, just the actos and just how they grew from that moment, they are always charged. charge for social justice. And even in Mexican American literature, and I'm so sad that we only got to do 2 pieces. If I am teaching it in the fall, so if you want to come back and learn more about Mexican American literature, I am teaching in the fall. It's actually pretty great. I really, really like teaching that class. So even just that Mexican American literature, just the roots of Mexican American literature has its roots in social issues. One of the very first things I teach in that class is the Ballad of Gregorio Cortes, or corrido. And a corrido is like a ballad. It's a story told to music. And corridos still happen in Mexican American traditions today. Now they talk about different things. But this particular corrido about Gregorio Cortes, which started off as a story that was told vocally, it was passed down and passed down, and the story has changed. There's I've seen 3 different versions. I would not doubt if there were 300 versions of this particular story. It's about this poor person who may or may not have stolen a horse, and was hunted by the Texas Rangers, which at that time, and this is turn of the century, Mexican Civil War time, the Texas Rangers weren't that great. They were not that great. And so you have kind of the epitome of bad guy versus good guy. And Gregorio Cortes being the hero of an entire community. And his story, which was a true story, not completely accurate. The actual story of what went down, according to historians, wasn't completely accurate. But, the historical, I don't know. There's some speculation in that. But the stories that were passed down that were made into songs, that were made into stories, told to children at bedtime, change. So there's a huge oral history in Mexican American literature that has deep roots in social issues, and social justice. And actos are no different. They're no different. And this is what makes this piece really exciting to share. Just like last week's How to Tame a Wild Tongue was really exciting to share because of the form it has. It is a collage essay, and because it is a collage essay, it's taking bits and pieces, stories and academic work, putting it all together to create one big argument. It's similar to Actos, How to Tame a Wild Tongue, rooted in social justice and identity, the identity of being a Mexican woman, a Chicana, a Mexican American woman, rooted in what language is, and language being one of those things that could be something that opens the door or closes the door, depending on who is on the other side of that door. And Actos being rooted, especially Los Vendidos. Los Vendidos actually translates to the sellouts. So it's really cool. I'm at 14 minutes. I think I'm done nerding out. I'm really exhausted here. But I wanted to make sure that you had these thoughts in your head as you're reading the story, as you're going or reading the play, as you're going through the lesson, going through the rhetorical situation, and going through the elements of fiction. One of the reasons why we go through the elements of fiction for this particular piece, and for pretty much any play, is that you use the elements of fiction whenever you have a narrative. A narrative can come in a short story, and it also can come in a play, because there's a beginning, a middle, and an end. There's a through line. The through line is there's a story that goes, it starts here, it climbs up, there's a climax, there's a descent, and then there's an ending. So that this is a narrative, so you need to use the elements of fiction for your strategy for this particular piece. All right. I hope you enjoy it. Again, I wish there wasn't a huge freeze, because I would have actually done the Gregorio Cortes piece for next week. That was actually my plan. But I thought it was more important that you guys take a break, because I need a break. I need a break. And I know you need one too. You have other classes other than mine. Some of you have 2 honors classes, bless your hearts. So it's important that you guys take a break and use some of this time to do some of your research too. All right, let me know if you have any questions. I will be working on memo responses and doing all the things. And I will see you soon. Bye, guys.